Not very many Kenyans know that Kenya, and especially President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, Nakuru town and Mombasa town played a big role in Angola's history, especially towards its independence. The three leaders of Angola, that is Agostinho Neto of the MPLA. MPLA is Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola. I'm talking of that in English, but you see in Portuguese it would be Popular Movement, something like that. So MPLA is Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola. There was Holden Roberto. Holden Roberto was the leader of the Front for the National Liberation of Angola, otherwise known as FNLA. Then the third one was Dr. Jonas Savimbi of UNITA, United for the National Total Independence of Angola. The three used to come, and for the subscribers or the viewers who are in Nakuru, you may have noticed that there is a hotel called Angola. I'll tell you how it came to be called Angola. So the three used to come to Kenya, and Mzee Jomo Kenyatta tried several times to unite them to enter into independence united. But every time they left Kenya, they went and everybody took his side. For example, FNLA was covering the area that was north, bordering Zaire, which today is DRC. Holden Roberto was very close to the CIA and to the Zairean government of Mobutu Sese Seko. Actually, he was a brother-in-law to Mobutu Sese Seko. I don't know whether he's still alive, but Mobutu Sese Seko is dead. So even his mode of dressing, most of the time he used to dress the Zairean style. Jonas Savimbi covered the west. There's a place called Mexico. It sounds like Mexico, Yahuko. But you see Mexico, Portuguese. You know Mexico, South America is a Latin country. So maybe the name have one background, I don't know. Savimbi was also being supported by the West. Now, initially there were two fronts. There was the MPLA, which was supported by the East, that being USSR and Cuba, and FNLA, supported by Zaire and CIA. You see, the CIA, their work is just to send money, isn't it? And we, let me not say we Africans, but some of us, if we are in authority and we get funds, be assured that we'll tax the fund before it goes down. So it went on that way. And even the West, the FNLA broke into two. Jonas Savimbi started his. Jonas Savimbi was a doctor, but then the doctors of those days are different from doctors of today. Professors of those days are different from professors of this day. A person like Dr. Uko had no doctorate, and he was not even... Actually, Dr. Uko was assassinated at the time when he was doing his PhD. He had been given a honorary doctor. Those days you are given an honorary doctor, you start calling yourself Dr. So-and-so. As for Jonas Savimbi, he went to Portugal to study for medicine. But he did not complete. He wanted to come back to Angola to fight for freedom. He became a freedom fighter. So since he was in a medical school and he didn't complete those years, he just, the first time you step in the medical school, you have already become we have Professor Saitoti. Professor Saitoti was an associate professor. You find that those days even associate professors were calling themselves professors. Nowadays, you have to be a full professor to call yourself a professor. So Dr. Jonas Savimbi had started medical, but he did not complete and came back to Angola for freedom fighting. Where they used to come to Nakuru and Mombasa simply because due to Mzee Jomo Kenyatta's medical condition, he used to spend over 80% of his time was spent in the two towns. So whenever these people would come to Kenya to meet Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, they would either go to Nakuru if he was in Nakuru, or if they came and found that he was in Mombasa, they would go to Mombasa. MPLA covered the area that was west of the country. FNLA covered the northern towards Zaire, and UNITA covered to the east. Now, as I said that CIA used to send money, but you'll find, and it was sending money to two different groups, FNLA and UNITA. But USSR was sending to MPLA. And we used to, for those of my age mates will remember, Cuba used to export mercenaries. It reached a time when most of the soldiers in the Angolan army, you see, MPLA took over Angola during the independence, because those days, if you captured the capital, then you are considered the government. So they captured the area that covered the capital, and then they flooded the country with so many mercenaries, and that is why they kept on extending. FNLA, with its leader Holden Roberto, just disappeared slowly. You cannot pinpoint a day when it got finished. But Dr. Jonas Savimbi continued with his guerrilla tactics even after independence. But then there used to be international mediators, and he continued that way until Agostino Neto died, and the second president came in. I've forgotten the name of the next president, but if I remember, I'll put it in the comment section. So he continued, and then when he continued doing that, international mediators tried to join them, and they agreed that the then president, the second president of Angola, was to be the president, and he had a vice president. So it was planned that they expand so that he is the president, and they have two vice presidents. Savimbi becomes the senior vice president, and the other one becomes just vice president. They did that, and they even went to an election. MPLA won. What did Savimbi do? Savimbi went back to the forest. So he was a typical African, and he was a typical African because African elections, like in Kenya, the only person who has ever accepted defeat is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who accepted defeat in 2002. But in Kenya and in Africa, losing an election is, if you ask a person who has lost, instead of asking, have you lost the election, just ask him, have they rigged you out? Say, yes, I've been rigged out. So when he lost the election, he said he had been rigged out. He went back to Mexico, continued with the war, with the activities until he was assassinated and buried there. But later his body was exhumed and given a national honor. Thank you.